listening to Finding Your Genius Zone with Dirk Nevelle. It's not just a job. It's not just a paycheck. Or at least it doesn't have to be. With the help of experts across industries, Dirk helps you find your passion and career, as well as exposing the unknown parts of every vocation. Let's go deep. Let's find your genius zone right now. Here's Dirk Nevelle.
Hey everybody, this is Dirk. Welcome to the show. On with me today is Adrian Weaver. Adrian is, I got to know Adrian not long ago. Him and I are in the same line of work, different capacities, but Adrian's a guy that I really respect. He's very good at what he does. And he also, is very well-rounded in terms of he has interests in other areas. And I've always enjoyed those conversations. But, from an appraisal standpoint, if you're looking at getting into the business, Adrian's one of those guys that I'm confident can really educate you on not only the job itself, but the lifestyle behind it. So I'm going to ask Adrian, you can step in a little bit and talk to us a little bit about what you do, how long you've been doing it, and anything else you want to throw out there.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I started, I kind of got into appraising a little bit serendipitously and got in near the end of the last boom in 2007. So I got in and then not long after things kind of crashed on me and I was left like, oh, what do I do? Rode through, things got picked up. I took about 3 to 4 years. Things started picking up, and it was great. A typical day for me is a lot of research. Spend a lot of time on the computer, a lot of time in solitude, and trying to analyze the different markets, what's going on with different neighborhoods, what's impacting different neighborhoods. There's obviously some influences outside of that have control. So being here in Washington, we have so many different styles of homes, from split entries to contemporary to moderns, homes with mountain views, water views. It's all over the place. So it keeps the job interesting around here. And the nice thing is being able to go out to do the home inspections and their home appraisal inspections and meet different people and come across and see people's ideas and what they do. And some people work from home, obviously. More recently, when the COVID happened, a lot of people were home and it was just nice to be able to connect with people. That's one of the fun parts of the job, I should say.
Yeah, let me jump in real quick because you're kind of saying some things that are perfect for this podcast.
Okay.
And so I want to address those, but also before I get into those things, those questions, 2007, I remember I got in the mortgage lending world in 2002, experience 2007, 2008, all of that fun stuff. Prior to that, were you in real estate as well, or were you doing something totally different?
No. So prior to that, I was actually heading down the path of being a financial planner. I had my Series 663 life property casualty license, the whole kit and caboodle, considered being a stockbroker. And a buddy of mine, a good friend of mine at the time, he had got into appraising. So while I was working as an inside wholesaler for a local insurance company, he went into the appraising world, and it was, again, during the boom time. So he's making money hand over fist, and I'm scratching and clawing to make a fifth of what he was making. And so, what am I doing here? And at that time, I was in my mid to late 20s. So the financial aspect was a little more appealing than the long-term focus of what my interests.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
Okay, cool. You just clicked off for like 2 seconds, but so that's interesting. So when you jumped into the world of appraisals, was your driver income, money, or did you give it much thought into what it would be like to be an appraiser?
It was majorly financially driven, yes. because again, a buddy of mine
Yeah.
had.
So
Can you hear me?
you cut off again. That's okay.
Okay.
It's
Sorry about
okay.
that.
It's no big deal. I mean, I just wanted to let you know that I couldn't hear you, but I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, a buddy of mine had been into it, and he was calling me every day. He's on the road. He's inspecting homes, and he's bringing home the bacon. And it made me second guess what I was doing because I did the whole go to school, get your education, uh, figure out what you want to do, and I thought I had it figured out. But he was making $30,000 a month, somewhere about that, and I'm bringing home $3,500 a month. So uh, to me, it was kind of like, well, let me go try that. And
Yeah.
so that's what kind of brought me over into it. And I did come to find that it was of interest to me after I delved into it a little bit deeper.
So going back to my original comment before I ask you about your background prior to, it's interesting because when you were talking, because it's for me, like I'm a social guy, right? I love interviewing. I'm really curious. I'm kind of, and I'm great. I'm great in social settings. I can talk to anybody, but I'm really kind of a social introvert. Like I really like my time, like, designing homes, writing music, things where I can kind of lock myself in a room. And then, I'll go out and have drinks and dinner with friends.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I find myself really like good with being by myself. And when you're talking, I was thinking, okay, this is interesting. The appraisal business. And these are things, by the way, Adrian, that I'm trying to get young adults thinking about. It's not just about the money or what you're doing, but I want people to think about things that go with the job. So like when you were talking, there's a lot of data analysis. There's a lot of work where you're by yourself, and then
a
lot of work. Yeah, research, comparables, comps. Is this a good comp? Is it not? Looking at the market trends, and then you get to go out and be social, where you get to go meet homeowners, and they'll let you. So it's kind of like best of both worlds, I guess. Have you ever thought, like, are you a person who wants a little time, me time, and then a little social time? I mean, have you thought about your temperament as it relates to this industry?
Yeah, I have. It does work well for me. I am more the social aspect, I would say, is going to be a smaller part of my enjoyment. I am more of I love to analyze. To me, I look at when I'm putting an appraisal together. To me, it's kind of like playing chess in a sense, where I'm having to figure out, okay, this home was sold for this price. Why? And so putting this puzzle together in the part of the thinking it through and the comprehension and pulling it all together, that's what interests me. That's the part I enjoy. Also can be tough sometimes because sometimes things just do not make sense. And you'll rack your brain to the step away for a little while. And I find sometimes I'm completely exhausted at the end of the day just from sheer thinking of trying to problem solve. Because it's an important job. A lot of people don't give the credibility to the level of importance. I mean, we're working with someone's home. This is a lot of times people's biggest investment. And of course, they're attached to that. So whatever I put in this report, a lot of people are going to read. And if I miss something or I'm not able to explain it, I'm going to get a phone call most likely. The social aspect of it, though, of going out, it's nice to step away from the desk. It's a refresher, or it's refreshing. Get out, especially in the summertime when it's nice and sunny. Here in the Northwest, we get maybe 4 to 5 months of that. But during those times, it's great. I love seeing new neighborhoods, going into new homes. People have remodeled. I get ideas for myself, of course. And it really helps to kind of get an understanding of what people value. And so you go out and you see these different things. People explain to you what they did, why they did it. And I bring that back. And so over time, you accumulate all these little ideas and things that actually matter to people. So yes, it is the best of both worlds of being social and spending time alone and noodling on the problem of figuring out the home value. But the I'm sorry. For
No,
me,
it's
I,
good.
I,
This
I
is
really
good.
enjoy that part. I am more of a introvert, so it
No,
works great.
this is awesome. I mean, this is giving people an insight into, when you're talking, it's funny. I would not like, I wouldn't want to be a realtor, a commercial real estate guy. I don't like having to get in my car and drive anywhere. What I love about mortgage lending is I can lock myself in a room and communicate with my referral partners and my database and
Yeah.
do it in my slippers, if you know what I mean. Um,
Yes, I
and
do.
I don't mind like going and seeing friends or meeting my mom for lunch or going and working out, but like I wouldn't want my job based on me getting in a car and having to go drive around. And like you seem to be okay with that, but like I think those are the things people need to think about is what is your day going to be like? Like, are you mobile? Are you, can you move to Florida and do your job? And like in your world, you probably couldn't, right? You have to be licensed in this state and your job is in this geography where you don't have the flexibility to go do your job in Hawaii for half a year.
No. Well, yes and no. Sorry.
Yeah.
So there is some flexibility where you can get a reciprocal license agreement in certain states. The challenge, of course, is going to be if you don't know the neighborhood, how are you going to do a proper appraisal? I know there's one of the top appraisers who teaches here locally. He does also Arizona and I think Montana. So states that are near and dear to him. Arizona, obviously, a lot of people vacation there. So over time, you may get to know the different areas. But for the most part, it is going to be pretty difficult to be able to take it and go, like you said, to Hawaii or to Florida and do the job here. I have to be present to go to the home inspections. Although things are starting to change in the industry with now where they have people go out and do the inspections and then they send in the data and we do a desktop appraisal. So something like that does allow me to be somewhere else, do the appraisal, just knowing the market area because I'm born and raised here and been in the industry for the last 16 years. So if somebody else goes out and does the appraisal sends it, or does the inspection sends in the information to me, I'm able to analyze for the most part, make my assumptions and things that don't quite make sense, and put a report together still. And I can be anywhere in the world and do that. So that's a nice thing with some of the changes, but um, it also makes things a little more challenging too, because if I didn't personally inspect it myself, did the person who did go out there, did they miss something? Did they take a bad angle? Um, was there a view and it was a cloudy day and they didn't capture that? And I don't know. So those are some of the things that can be challenging. But for the most part, yeah, it historically, no, we couldn't go anywhere else. Nowadays, things have changed, and there's some flexibility of being able to
Yeah.
be
No,
remote.
that's interesting. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you might have a little more flexibility in that career than I thought. And by the way, I've been in the mortgage industry, real estate lending for a long time. And the most important, in my opinion, the most important part of the process is the collateral, which is the home or the condo or whatever. It is
Yes.
more important in income, more important in credit. And so you do have a big job, right? I mean, banks are
Yeah.
they're relying on
Yeah.
you to accurately analyze the value of a property, and therefore they're going to lend based off that value. And the emotions, I get it when people are selling their homes and think they're worth. I mean, I can only imagine walking into a home and then having, the husband and wife or one of them just following you around, telling
Oh
you
yeah.
how great their home is. I think that would be a good reality TV show.
Yeah, no, you hear it all. If they change the light bulb, they change the light switches. You hear it all, and I just say, "Oh, okay, great," and keep moving.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's, we can be the good guy or we can be the bad guy as the appraiser, and I've been both. And I've had, I mean, I'm sure a lot of appraisers have had scenarios where you've been to a person's home one time and they didn't like your opinion of the value of their home,
Yeah.
and then the bank sends you out again a second time and they remember you. And so I've been in that situation before as well. And, you know, like anything, you got to be unbiased and neutral, understand that understand people are going to be emotionally attached to their home. I can't take offense to how they feel about the work that I've done, as long as I know that I was fair and unbiased, and this is my opinion, and I can back it up with some data.
Yeah, I think I got a couple more questions, but it's funny when I think about how many times a homeowner, like the clock behind you, somebody will say, well, what about this clock? And they think the value of the house will go up $15,000, or like my hot tub, or my grass is really green and I got beautiful Japanese maple trees. So let talk to me a little bit about what else, like maybe two other things that you haven't talked about that you love about your job. Maybe love strong, but really like about your job.
I enjoy the architecture. I enjoy the neighborhoods. It's real interesting. When I was out just last week, I was doing an appraisal, and after I got done, I called my wife up and I said, I don't know what it is about this neighborhood, but something feels good about it. Because I've been in a certain neighborhood, I'll go in and the hairs in the back of my neck will stand up, and I'm on edge. I'm looking around, and then there's other ones when you go in, it's just that there's a calming feeling. I said, I could live in this neighborhood. I don't know what it is. There's something peaceful. There's an aura. It's also great being able to go in neighborhoods and I see neighbors walking the dogs, chit chatting, and just being lively. So that was what I would say I enjoy. Love, yes, you said, but that's pretty strong. I also enjoy the aspect of having something new to learn or figure out, and getting that aha moment, like, oh, got it. So a little bit of a challenge, I guess. Otherwise, you get bored.
Yeah, can you give me an example, like maybe of like an aha moment in your? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty, but give me something that you gave you some.
A small example. First thing that comes to mind, Mercer Island. We know the homes of Mercer Island. Well, viewers may not, but you're looking at millions of dollars, and you have homes along the waterfront. So it can be challenging because you say, why is this one selling for so much more than that one? And then you start to dig a little deeper and you realize, oh, people are paying more for the sunset than they are the sunrise. So depending on either the east side of the island or the west side of the island could make all the difference. Both waterfronts, but people enjoy the sunset more than they do the sunrise. And so, this goes back to years and years ago, and I was racking my brain, like, what am I missing? I don't understand. It was quite a difference, actually. I want to say it was hundreds of thousands, maybe $300,000 or $400,000 difference. Same home.
Oh, it's okay.
For being on one side of the home versus the other. So that's something that I was like, got it. So then from then on, anytime I was doing waterfronts, I was sure to look for that. Camino Island was another example, similar type of thing.
That's so interesting you said that. My mom and stepdad, they live on Mercer Island, and they have a beautiful property on the lake facing Enitai. And, we go out there a lot in the summer with the kids, and Tyson has been out there with Hope. And I remember it in the summertime that, the sun hits the east side and it's so hot sometimes. Right. And we have no light, no heat. And then initially I was like, God, that sucks. I'd like to have the heat at night. But then I realized, like, when it's really hot, I would rather be on this side, of the lake. And I don't know if I'd want to live on that side, to be honest. But yeah. So how long do you think it took you to, and by the way, like, I'm listening to you, and this podcast is about finding your zone of genius. And it doesn't mean you're the genius, like you're the Albert Einstein, the best in the world that's ever done your job, but you are leveraging natural interests of yours. I can tell, like, you're naturally interested in neighborhoods. You have an eye for the vibe, the energy, and you like seeing real estate. You like seeing changes. Yeah. You seem to be in your flow. How long did it take or I should say, how long do you think it would take somebody to get really good? Like years ago, I remember, I think is Alan Pope is a really, he's a big deal, right?
He's a big deal here in Washington. He's kind of the who's who originally.
Yeah.
He got the guy who I take most of my classes from, Richard Hager, actually started with Alan Pope. I think it was in the late 70s even.
Okay.
It was a long time ago. So yeah, he's the who's who though around here.
Yeah, he's good. But how long do you think it takes? Like, because like I think in different industries, people need to pay attention to, you know, success doesn't happen overnight. Like everybody wants to expedite, you know, success, right? And
that's true. Yes.
And I know, like in my business, it can take years just to develop a database and understand the business. In the world of appraisals, like how long do you think it would take if somebody's interested in getting into your world? What would you say the timeline is from start to finish of like being really good and competent?
As with anything, there's going to be nuances. If you're born and raised in the area and you kind of have an idea of certain neighborhoods in the area, then obviously that's going to speed things up. And I would say 3 to 5 years to be decent and 10 plus to be good.
Okay.
You know, because you're going to have to see the different examples, the different challenges are going to have to come your way that you're going to have to be able to understand. For instance, like the Mercer Island, the east-west of the island was one example. I didn't have that in my first couple of years, you know, as a trainee or when I first started. And so that goes in as one of my things, split level homes, right? Those are passe now for the most part. Super nice ones out there. And what I found is that families who like to have mother-in-laws, they would typically take the split level to the lower level and the maternal and mother-in-law. So I started to find out, there's an interest for certain types of people who want to keep the family together. And so it's more of a value to them versus a 2-story home. Then also too, with new construction, you're having smaller lots. So whereas in the 90s and the early 2000s, you had decent sized yards, and now you have the poster stamp lots, little slab patio, small yard, and they're selling for more than these homes with big yards. I go, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. So it's constantly evolving, but then it's starting to understand these chunks of what's happened and where's the impact and the value, what's contributory towards the value here. You know, we all have our own preference, and that's, I guess, trying to understand the preference. And sometime I am a real estate agent as well, and I also interview agents when I'm in certain neighborhoods. So you kind of know who's the king of what neighborhood or queen of what neighborhood, and you know, you get in touch with their team and say, hey, I noticed that you guys have this listed for about $50,000 over everything else. What's going on with this? And so you learn a lot from interviewing the agents as well, because they tend to be long-term pioneers in their specific neighborhoods. They become experts.
Yeah, no, this is good. You mentioned something just a little bit ago I want to touch on. You're talking about the timeline to kind of get good. You said, I think even 5 to 10 years to get really good. So this is kind of the I don't want to say the problem, but one of the things I'm trying to expedite is, you know, I had a dad that was, I always bring him up because I think it's a good example. It's like he was hardcore in terms of get a job and, you know, very, so my definition of success was my dad's, right? That voice was in my head. You don't love your job, son. You just, you know, nobody loves it. Work. That's why it's called work. I disagree. Like, I think that you get locked into a career or a job that you don't like, it ultimately affects your performance and your success. So what I'm trying to do in this podcast is, I understand sometimes you have to have life experience, get out there, see what you like, see what you don't like. But I also think there's time to identify and just kind of realize and take note of what you naturally like to do, how you like to spend your time, you know, and so forth. So, but you mentioned something about the timeline to get good at your career. And so that made me think that's the problem, is like, whether it's 5 years or 15 years in medical school or law school or whatever, is I've seen too many people invest too much time and resources to going down the wrong road. And then in technology, a lot of times it's called golden handcuffs, where they get the stock options and then they're like locked in and like, crap, I can't afford to leave. So that's the thing, is like, I'm trying to like help people not invest all this time. So let's get into a little bit about what you don't like about your job. Like, and that's okay. You don't have to love everything, but what are some of the things that you're like, oh man, I didn't see this coming? Or, hey, if you're going to get into this industry, you really need to know these 2 or 3 things.
Sure. Yeah. So when I got in, it was short-sighted. Again, it was a time in the early housing boom of the early 2000s. And so the only thing that I knew at that time was that my buddy was making a ton of money, and I went to school, did 4 years, and kind of went that long path, and I was headed a different direction. And so he had got in right away and started making money instantly. I said, wait, what am I doing here? What I would have done better, wish I would have done better, is have the chance to speak with someone like you're doing right now, which I think is fantastic. Speak to someone who had been in it a little bit longer. Say, okay, this looks great. What am I missing here? Because there's always going to be another side of the coin. What's the other side of the coin? Because everything looks shiny and fantastic.
By the way, that should be the name of the podcast. What's on the other side of the shiny coin?
Yeah. There's always another side. And so for me, again, I got in right near the tail end of the last, of the 2007, 2008. And all of a sudden I was smacked with reality. I got the other side of the coin rather quickly. And it was the impact of the economy, interest rates, and how that impacted things. Because here I had a steady income. I left that, went into appraising, started off hot for a quick minute, and it doors, quickly slammed in my face. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? I had to make the choice of, do I want to ride this through, or do I want to jump out and go back to what I was doing before? The part I didn't like was not knowing where I was going to get the business from. The other part, I guess, that is good and bad is like all industries, it's constantly evolving. When I first got in, I could go knock on a door, say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I could do. This is what I cover. This is how much I charge. Give me a shot. And, that part of the job sucked. But the same token, it also put me in control of my situation. I have to knock on more doors. I have to go meet more people. I have to do what I have to do to get one deal. Before, I can knock on 3 or 4 doors and I'll get a deal. Now I'm knocking on 20. And then the Dodd-Frank.
If you can hear me, you froze for a second.
Hi, Dirk.
You're back.
My power cut out.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it's windy out here. My power just froze and everything went off.
Oh, no problem. You know what we'll do is I can edit. No big deal. But I was really enjoying what you're saying. You're talking about and it made me think, you're talking about knocking on doors. Now you got to knock on more. Are you trying to get business to the consumer, or are you going after like banks and mortgage companies to get them on your list?
Yeah. So at that time, back then, before I really knew what was involved, I was actually going to mortgage offices. I'd go to Google, pull up a list of mortgage offices, draw out a game plan, and drive around and knock on doors, hand out fee schedules and coverage areas, and introduce myself. I talked to who I could talk to. Obviously you get to get past some gatekeepers sometimes, but it was in the beginning, it was a driving game. And then things evolved where I wasn't allowed to do that anymore. And so at that point, it's like, oh no, well, what am I going to do? So then you're sending out emails and flyers. Luckily, they had stimulated things. They brought interest rates down. Business sparked right up, and things went well. And so the uncertainty of what's going to happen from year to year, month to month, is the part of the job that I really don't necessarily enjoy. But because there's two sides every all tokens or all coins, sorry, you have to accept that if you want the freedom that comes with it.
Great point. Actually, you know what? That's a really good point, because I'm in your same world, right? Like I'm really slow right now, and I feel like a loser. And
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm usually one of the guys that's not slow, right? And
Sure.
and so like I have no control. Like my whole database is in the 2s and 3s on their rate, and it's really stopping them from wanting to purchase because they're going to jump into a rate that's double or triple. And the first time home buyers are different because they're renting and they're trying to just get into the game. But like the refis are dead unless you're getting a divorce or you're pulling cash out for college or whatever. But I think that's really important that you say is you got to understand, like, do you have control in this career? And the truth is you don't. I mean, you have control. You have control of how hard you want to work and how many doors you want to knock on. But when the Fed decides to, bring rates up to, 7%,
double in a year.
yeah, you might really be screwed. And so you have to understand that. And like for me, I don't like the control. Like if I could do anything, which at the end of this podcast, I'm going to ask you your dream job. I love music. And I love music for movies. And I would love to write music for movies and sit in my office, get creative, have a root beer or a glass of wine or something, write my music, and then just give it to someone, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
But is there anything else as far as like maybe one more thing? Maybe it's compensation or how you scale your business, because you can't scale it. I mean, you just need to do more deals, and you can only do so many deals. But anything else that somebody needs to understand?
Another part I don't enjoy, I wouldn't say I don't enjoy it, but it's kind of it gives you that icky feeling, is unfortunately, and this is exposing a part of the truth of it, there's different tiers that the banks have for appraisers. And at the lower tier becomes the crab in the bucket type of thing, where the appraisers are cutting each other's throats to get the deal. So one appraiser says 500, the one, I'll do it for 450, well, I'll do it for 400, well, I'll get it to you the same day for 300. And it's like we're cutting each other's throats. And it gets to a point in time, so what's your time worth, and how low are you going to go before you might as well go find another profession? So you have to be emotionally strong to ride through sometimes, when you got to stand your ground and say, this is my bottom line. You go, oh, well, great, we'll send it over here then. Okay. The value that you're providing as an appraiser, you have to know your worth. And I understand the panic when things get slow, because we're coming up through a slow period right now. And I get some crazy, ridiculous offers. I go, no, I'm not doing that for that. I mean, gas prices are going up, food prices are going up, and my prices are coming down. Well, okay, I got to make a living, but at a certain point, I can continue doing what I'm doing when the situation fits my required income. But in the meantime, I'll look for something else. I'm not gonna sell myself short.
Really, really good point. I mean, I deal with it too. I'm doing a deal, and all of a sudden you know what? Someone told me to go to bankrate.com or
oh no.
And now all of a sudden, now I'm dealing with some person who's 22 years old that's willing to make pennies on the dollar just to, whatever.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, that's tough. You gotta stand your ground. And what about real quick? We're kind of winding down here, but the politics of being on banks or mortgage, like I've had situations in the past where I've had appraisers kicked off a list because of whatever, a bad appraisal or whatever. Is that in your mind as well on every deal? Like, oh my gosh, I gotta toe the line.
Yeah, that was a great question. Yes, as a matter of fact. So I've been removed from list, and actually too, I've actually also had to defend myself against the state. Um, and in both of those, so removed from the list because it was a purchase deal. I didn't agree with the purchase price, and there was an agent who had been in the area for a while, was tenured, and had a good connection with the lender. So I don't know for certain, but it seems all the dots connect. I believe that the agent was upset that I would not agree with them and made a phone call to the lender, who made a phone call to the appraisal management company, who then removed me from the list and didn't understand why. I did my job. I did it unbiasedly. This is my opinion, and I wasn't going to budge. Even though they asked for a reconsideration of value, I took a look over it, still didn't agree. And I've also had a situation where I don't do these as much anymore, but appraisal reviews, and I didn't agree with the original appraisal. I thought it was done very quickly and without much thought, and I pointed out my reasons. And because of that, it was another purchase deal, but they sent it to me for the review. And again, I think it was another agent who wasn't happy, made a phone call, and then I was back and forth with the chief appraiser from the appraisal management company. I think that they might have been strong-armed into some things, and I told them I wasn't budging, and so they didn't. They found all appraisals. You can find something wrong if you look deep enough. They dug into my review. They sent it into the state. The state came after me. I proved myself. I vindicated myself. Proved everything that I had. Typically, for an appraiser, most appraisers don't keep good records, and so that's a lot of times they'll get nailed. They say, "Okay, give me your work file," and they're going to find that, "Oh, you said this in the report, but where's it in your work file?" I'm tech savvy enough to keep all my stuff. So I had it like that. Then they go, all right, well, prove this to me. So I have to basically reverse engineer all my work so they can follow it step by step. Kind of like you should do a math class. They go, well, show your work. That's what I have to do. I have to show my work to get to the answer and walk them through it. And once they get it, all right, you're off. But, it's just, why do I have to go through all of that? I am supposed to be doing an unbiased, independent job. And because somebody doesn't agree, they can fuss enough and then take it up the chain to where it could have cost me my career. I could have been suspended. Anything. I mean, the what could have been if I wasn't able to defend myself could have been pretty tragic. I mean, this is how I feed my family.
Yeah.
Somebody's coming after me for doing the job independently because they don't like what I had to say.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the bullshit politics even plays a role in your world, even though it's a very independent gig that you have, right? I mean, and that's the thing too, is like, I'm not a political guy. Like, I know how to speak and say the right things, but like, I worked in technology and big tech, and I realized like, man, this isn't for me. I'm just not a bend the knee kind of guy, and I have a strong opinion. And anyway, I think this is really good information. The one thing I want to ask, just kind of getting into, and I've never asked anybody this because I work with appraisers all the time, but like let's take an average, like I know there's mobile homes, and then there's homes on Lake Washington. I mean, there's a big variety in the home, but let's just say you're dealing with a typical average home, I don't know, value, $600,000-700,000, King County, whatever. How many deals, how many appraisals can you do in a month to where your family's still seeing you and you're not going berserk? Like, is that like 2 a day, 3 a day?
Yeah, that's about right. 2 to 3 a day tops. During the busy time, I had hired on some folks to take some of the monotony away from things that you don't need me for. I can just have somebody type in the reports and here's the information, do the data entry portion. But that is about it. You start getting more than that, you are going to be behind the desk quite a bit. The irony in it all is as things slow down, each report takes a little bit longer because it's scrutinized more. Because when I send it off, it goes to a reviewer. They have more time on their hands, so they're checking every single box, making sure I didn't miss anything. I missed something, they send it back to me. So while things are slower, each report takes longer because of the checklist and having to be more accurate and precise and explain everything.
Yep.
Things are busy. Nobody has time for that. So they're just looking for the main points. Did you cover the main things? Did you show me this, show me that? And they check their boxes and they send it along. But right now they want to see every T crossed and every I dotted.
Okay. So let's just go 2 a day just for a random number.
Yeah.
That's 10 a week. Maybe, let's call it 35 to 40 a month.
Yes.
Is that a good month?
That's a really good month.
Okay.
Right now. I've done, during my busiest time, I've done a little over 100.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a lot.
I wasn't sleeping much. I was burning both ends of the candle. And, that was a sacrifice. And you're going to have mood fluctuations. You're going to be sleep deprived. You're a little more cranky, and the family doesn't quite like you quite so much. So while the money is great, there is a balance. I think that's what you're getting at. And
yeah,
I certainly agree. I find more peace, more comfort, more joy, less money, and doing the 2 to 3 a day.
The balance. So, and I'm not asking what you make, but like on average, if somebody's doing 2 a day, let's call it 35, 40 appraisals a month. Is there like a typical fee? Like, are appraisers making $600-$700 net a deal, or I guess on a very complicated lakefront property, they might make a lot more, but like, what would be like an average, not for you, but just an average appraiser, like $500, $600?
Well, it's changed. If you asked me this a year ago, it would have been a couple $100 more than it is today.
Okay.
So right now we're going to probably be looking around $500.
Okay. Is that net?
No. Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm got my little calculator out. I mean, you're talking, in an average market, maybe, it's a base salary of $250, or more, and then you have the home runs where you might do a big home and make more. I want to give the viewers kind of just a feel for, is this a $80,000 gig, or could it be a $500,000 gig?
Yeah. You're going to have the waves and slow times. So I remember specifically, my slowest month ever was July of 2011, I want to say, or maybe it was 2009. And I did a total of 12 appraisals that month. That's it. Very slow, very boring. And then my busiest month, like I said, was north of 100. Wow. So the range as far as income goes, if you're going to average it out, I'm going to say you can and should be, north of 80,000.
Okay. No, it's good stuff. I mean, I think that people need to really understand not only what they can make, like, are they capped? Is there upside? But how they make their money and how they scale. Cause I mean, that's
it's going to take time, like in any profession. As you get better and you start networking and meeting people who open doors for you, and they kind of recognize that, okay, if you have the interest of taking it further beyond the basic homes, you start getting into the more difficult stuff, the competition falls by the wayside. There's no competition. When you get into the multi-million-dollar homes, just people, they make decent money doing the standard home versus doing the executives for Amazon or Microsoft type homes.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, same in my world. I do a lot of jumbo loans, and I found that a lot of the people in my industry kind of hover in the government loans, the conforming, the smaller loans. So when you get to jumbo, some people don't even do jumbo loans because it's a different animal. So we're winding this thing down. There's a couple questions I have, but the last thing about the appraisal world, if you had a piece of pie, would you say 80% of that is in your office doing data analysis, putting together, and 20% is out on the road, or am I off?
No,
Okay.
you're spot on.
Okay.
I really try to limit my time in the field just because for me, it being in the field is just data collection.
Yep.
And so before I even go out, I do a lot of preliminary research. And then when I'm there, it's more so just making sure what I've concluded before heading out is accurate. And if not, then I'll make the change on the fly. But,
Okay.
I'm looking at sketches of the homes before I even get to the home. I'm looking at
Yep.
the neighborhood aerial view. So I already, when I get there, have a pretty good idea, minus any remodeling or additions the homeowner might have made.
Okay.
I'm pretty close to knowing what I'm going to be walking into.
No, this is great. I think anyone that's like, I think trying to figure out what you want to do can be really stressful. And I think for a job that allows you to have freedom, some creativity, allows you to kind of, do your thing. If you're not saying you're an introvert, but maybe you like to kind of,
you have to work and kind of take a problem. If you're a problem solver, this is probably something that is for you. If the social aspect is there, but you're not going to get that fulfilled. You're not going to get much of that. You're going to get some of it, but you're not going to get a lot of it. So if someone wants to be a social butterfly, you can send them a real estate agent as well. That's a better route, in my opinion. But if you're a thinker, think tank, and you want to problem solve, then this is something that could fit the bill.
I love it. No, this is great information. So one of the things there's two questions I always ask my guests towards the end. And one of the things that's unique about my guest, Adrian, is so Adrian's son and my daughter have been dating for a while. And I love the young man. He's amazing. And we're really happy. They're a good match.
I agree.
And so I'm going to throw Tyson out there. So let's just say Tyson, whatever happens in his career, let's just say he decides to get into the, maybe he doesn't, I don't know, plays football. I don't know what happened, but if he was coming to you, I'm just trying to kind of give perspective. What kind of advice would you give to somebody that is like, Dad or Adrian, I don't know what I want to do. Like, would you just tell them to get out there, or would you tell them, like, is there any advice you can give to a young adult that's struggling with trying to figure out what the hell they want to do? Would you tell them? I mean, there's a lot of advice that my guests give.
Yeah.
I'm curious what yours would be.
Well, first thing I want to do myself is say, well, pull out your phone. Okay. Open up your YouTube. Let's look at your YouTube history. We're going to see what have you been putting your attention on, because where your attention is going to be a natural to where you should start going that direction. TikTok, YouTube, these things are dead giveaways. Kids, some people want it just for the entertainment. They like to do things for the entertainment. I know my son in particular, Tyson, if I look at his YouTube, there's going to be things on cars up and down. He loves to do mechanical type things. You know what? Go explore that. Some kids like to play video games. So, okay, what part of the video game is it? Is it the playing? Is it the competition? So if you're a video game person, and the reason I say that is because I know an interest of mine is coaching. So perhaps that might be something to look into, is the strategy, the thinking, because I look at coaching as a chess match. I like the chess aspect of things. So if that's where somebody's strength is competition, and I want to beat the other team, even though they have better players, how can I manage what I have and find the leverages to where I can win? So in TikTok, where do you spend your time? I mean, TikTok, it's vast and endless. And so because currency is attention in today's day and age, what stops you when you're going through TikTok? Where do you stop and watch the entire video? We're on to something.
This is awesome. I mean, I've never heard it spoken like that, but like, it's sometimes easier than you think. It's like, you don't necessarily need to take a personality test or go do a, Gallup strength, even though I love those. But sometimes it's like, what do you do on a Saturday when you have 6 or 7 hours and then all of a sudden it feels like 20 minutes? Like sometimes the answer is right in front of your face. I love that response. And I think that's something that, people should pay attention to. Like, look around and look at what you do, like without anyone telling you what to do. Where do you focus? Where do you spend your time? The other question I'm going to ask before we wrap it up is, let's just say God came down and said, Adrian, you can't ever be an appraiser anymore. It's off the table. You can't do anything with real estate. You got to go 180 and pick something completely different. What is a dream job of yours? Like, what if you could just kind of go to fantasy land, and what is something that you could see yourself just loving?
There's two things really. And I started heading that direction before I went off into the real estate world. And I kind of feel like what you just said, actually, God did come down and say, hey, you're done with real estate for right now with what's been happening in the industry lately. Primary interest is actually day trading. It's been something that's been an interest to me since my 20s, early 20s, even maybe teens, I would say. Very challenging. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the puzzle of it. And I also like economics. So if dream job, just be a day trader. That's similar to appraising, where I'm behind a desk and I'm analyzing. So it fits.
I love that, because here's one thing we haven't talked about is, for you guys watching this, you don't have to go all in on one career. You can be really good at a career and it might mean 60% of your time or 50% or whatever. And so what Adrian's talking about is, and I'm sure you do a little of this, but if you have a lot of interest, get into a career that's going to give you freedom, where you're not having to go to an office punching a clock where your boss is watching you, and
Yes.
But you have the freedom to be a day trader if you want, right?
To an extent, yeah. There's different aspects. You can be a swing trader, day trader. Day traders you have to have a little more focus because it's a little more active. But certainly a swing trader, yeah.
Cool. No, I love that.
Also coach. I really love coaching. Having an athletic son and being a former athlete myself, it's fun to me. I coached Tyson when he was young, and again, it's the chess match behind the play. Not so much to me, it's always, the team might have won, but it's me versus that coach. So yeah, that's what I really enjoy.
I'm with you, man. I've coached my daughter and my son. Now Noah's in high school and he's got a different voice in his head, which is actually great. But for me, coaching was always I love to get in the heads of these kids and have them stop thinking so much and let them leverage what their natural, when kids instinctually do things, you're like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And I see so many kids locked up in their head worried about making a mistake. And then, in life, it's the same thing as when you kind of go for it and break through your fear. And I think good things can happen, but that's kind of, again, what I'm trying to do in this podcast. And you were great. I think there's a lot of gold you threw out. A lot of people, I think, now have a really clear understanding of what your career is like. Is there anything before we end this, anything that you feel like you still want to say to that audience, or any kind of wisdom you want to get out there?
Just as far as the appraising goes, you're gonna have to be patient. Unfortunately, it's a profession that is somewhat. It has some nepotism in it. It's really difficult to get in. I wish they would change that, but it is a challenge, and the profession is aging. The only thing that I would really say is, no matter what it is, because we're dealing with computers, obviously AI and technology is evolving, and to stay up to date with that, because I don't know how that's going to change things, but I'm sure it's going to have an impact.
Is it? Am I saying it right? Chat GPT-4?
GP as in Paul, T as in Thomas. Yeah.
GPT. So I just had a guest yesterday who's big into that, and he's in the crypto world, and he's doing a lot of cool stuff. You guys actually would get along really well. I would think that technology could really impact your industry and not to scare you, but replace you.
I have that concern. Yes, I mean I use it sometimes in my own reports, only for more or less having kind of somebody edit a paragraph. I might say something and I'll put it in Chat GPT. Say this in a professional manner, and they'll reword some things and throw in a few things. Same context, but it writes it for me. I copy it in, put it in the report. I came up with the context, but it wrote it for me.
Could you say, give me the 4 best comps for this address? Is it there yet, or is that just
not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet, but I do have concern that that's coming. And a lot of appraisers are concerned when they change the style. Fannie may change how we do reports, and it's for them to collect a big database.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we don't know what's coming down, in the years to come, especially with AI advancing so rapidly. But this is why it's great to have side hobbies and other things you enjoy. And you asked me if God came down and said, I can't do real estate anymore. Well, I guess I'll head over to the day trading full time, and fingers crossed on that.
Side hustles are good. I think I think it's good to have, what's the word? Just to have other areas of opportunities in case, one gets, like right now, like I told you, I'm very slow, and this podcast is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and it's a lot of fun, but I think having other opportunities to consider, if you're going to go into an industry that you have little control over in terms of how you make money. And I think it's important to consider that. But thank you, Adrian, again for jumping on. And if things ever got really bad, you could come out and live on the farm with us, and I'll put you to work.
I don't mind doing a little bit of work, and thanks so much for having me on. It's been great being interviewed by you.
We'll see you soon, I hope.
Yes, absolutely. Take care.
Thanks, Adrian.
All right. Bye-bye.